Ancient Rome went through three major phases: the monarchy phase, the republic phase, and the imperial phase. Each of these phases had a unique structure of government. In this video, I explore the structure of government during the time when Rome existed as a republic, that is between 509 BCE and 27 BCE. I bring together the different offices I have discussed in my previous videos and give you a general timeline of the republic. Some of the questions I answer in this video include: when and why Rome became a republic, whether the Roman Republic was a democracy or an oligarchy, and why the republic ultimately failed. I welcome you to my YouTube channel where I explore ancient texts. The ancient texts I explore in this channel have been around for thousands of years. At the moment, I'm going through from the founding of the city by Titus Livius or Livy. This is a collection of books that was written about 2000 years ago. It covers the history of Rome from its founding by Romulus in the 750s BCE to the time when Augustus was emperor. If you have not subscribed, subscribe so that you don't miss any of the videos I publish. Rome is one of the longest running civilizations with three major phases, each with a very different government structure. The city was founded in the 750s BCE as a monarchy. Romulus, its founder, is considered to have been the first king. There were 6 more kings after him: Numa Pompilius, Tullus Hostilius, Ancus Marcius, Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. During the monarchy phase, the king had absolute power but was elected by the Senate and the public assembly. The Senate also helped him enact new laws and make other critical decisions regarding the affairs of the state. When and why did Rome become a republic? The last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, who ruled from 534 BCE, went against the tradition that all the previous kings had observed. First, he grabbed power by killing the reigning king, his father-in-law, Servius Tullius. Secondly, he was never elected like the other kings had been elected by the Senate and the People's Assembly. Thirdly, he killed most of the senators and other leading citizens, and he hardly consulted anyone else regarding affairs of the state besides his nuclear family, and in particular his wife Tullia and son Sextus. After Sextus, his second son, full of pride and feeling untouchable, assaulted Lucretia, the wife of his cousin Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus. The public was fed up. Led by Lucius Junius Brutus, Collatinus, and Spurius Lucretius, father of Lucretia, it rose and expelled the king and his family. This was in the year 509 BCE. With the king gone, the leaders of the revolution, in particular Brutus, decided that Rome was better off without a monarch. They decided to turn the Commonwealth into a republic. Livy tells us that Brutus administered an oath to the people of Rome to never again accept a king. While Livy does not outright say it, it is safe to assume that the decision to turn Rome into a republic was at least to some extent influenced by the ancient Greek city-states, most of which were thriving republics during this time. Indeed, later on in 451 BCE, Rome did send envoys to Athens to copy laws written by the famous Athenian lawgiver Solon. The leaders of the revolution that ended the monarchy, led by Brutus, appointed more senators to replace those that Superbus had killed and brought the number to 300. They also created the office of consul, held by 2 individuals elected annually. The consuls exercised all the powers that the king had held except the religious ones. It was considered disrespectful to the gods to have someone not a king lead some ceremonies. For this purpose, the consuls appointed a king of religious matters who served under the office of the Pontifex Maximus, the high priest. The first consuls to be elected were Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, the leaders of the revolution. The responsibilities of the consuls included leading the army to battle, settling civil cases, and leading the Senate to make decisions on behalf of the republic. They also represented the republic in negotiations with other states. The consuls also gave directions on the collection of taxes and how the money was spent. They also guided the process of enlisting men to join the army, known as levies, when there was a need to go to war. The consuls were elected from members of the patrician families. The republic had a senate. Those who served in the Senate were members for life, and their children inherited those seats. Indeed, the families that had had the privilege of having a seat in the Senate were the ones who were known as the patricians. The rest of the population was known as the plebeians. Some patrician families had received the seats from Romulus, the city's founder. Others had been appointed by Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, and others by the first consuls Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus. The responsibilities of the Senate included enacting new laws, electing consuls, advising consuls, and developing policy on tax payment. The Senate also approved the appointment of a dictator in times of crisis. The number of senators ranged from 100 to 5,000. The public too was an arm in the structure of the government. In the structure of the government, the people were considered to be at the top. This authority was known as imperial, citizens controlling the military and the government. The public participated in the election of the consuls every year through what was known as the curiate assembly or comitia curiata. Beside electing consuls, the curiate assembly also served as the highest court. The assembly could listen to cases and issue judgments as a jury. The assembly could also enact laws and overrule some of the decisions of consuls and other public officials. In 494 BCE, 15 years after Rome became a republic, another office was created, and this office became extremely powerful in the politics of the republic. This is the office of the tribune of the people. This office came into existence as a compromise between the plebeians and the patricians after the former seceded and left the city as a protest for the growing enslavement of the people due to high interest rates on credit issued by money lenders, mostly members of the patrician class. Between 2 and 5 individuals were elected annually to serve as the tribunes of the people. Their primary responsibility was to protect the plebeians from being taken advantage of by members of the patrician class. They also served as oversight on the consuls and other officials on behalf of the public. Indeed, they often impeached consuls in the curiate assembly and had them punished, ranging from being fined to getting death sentences. Whenever the republic faced a crisis, the consuls appointed a dictator subject to approval by the Senate. The dictator had more legal leeway to do things the consuls could not do. For example, the decisions of the dictator could not be overruled by the public assembly, and they could not be impeached like consuls would. Usually the dictator served for not more than 6 months and often resigned immediately after accomplishing whatever tasks they were appointed to do. The dictator appointed a master of the horse to help them rule. This was their right-hand man who ran errands for them. The master of the horse always left office with the dictator who appointed them. In 444 BCE, another office was created. This was the office of the consular tribune. This was a compromise office after the plebeians started to demand to be allowed to hold the office of consul. Some of the powers of consuls, especially military responsibilities, were transferred to this office, which had between 3 and 8 holders elected annually. While both patricians and plebeians qualified to stand for election into this office, it was mostly patricians who were elected. Other critical offices in the republic included the office of the Pontifex Maximus or high priest. The high priest was in charge of the college of priests or augurs who provided spiritual and religious leadership to the republic, including consulting the gods on behalf of it by interpreting the movement of birds and religious texts. This office also organized the games that were dedicated to gods. The king of religious matters also served under this office. The office of the high priest also supervised morality in the republic, including prosecuting those who failed to adhere to the moral code. There was also the office of the censor. This is the official who kept the records on the population and the amount of taxes paid by different classes of citizens. This official also gave out public contracts. There were also the lictors. These were bodyguards assigned to protect state officials, in particular consuls. They often maintained order during assembly meetings when the consuls were in attendance. Last but not least, there were the soldiers. Every adult male was expected to enlist to serve whenever needed to defend the republic. The soldiers had generals who served under the consuls or dictators. The soldiers served in legions of about 5,000 men under the leadership of a high-ranking general known as the legatus, often a senator. The legions were further classified into centurions, tribunes, and the legion legati. Was the Roman Republic a democracy? The answer to this question can be complex. In general, yes, the Republic was a democracy because the people had some say in the affairs of the state. They participated in the election of consuls through public assemblies. They could enact laws, impeach public officials, and overrule government policies. On the other hand, power was still overwhelmingly controlled by a smaller section of the population. Only patricians, whom the public did not elect, could become consuls. Even in offices open to plebeians, the patricians either filled them or decided who could occupy them. For example, Livy tells us that the patricians did decide who was ultimately elected tribune of the people. Also, while plebeians qualified to be elected consular tribunes, most of the time only patricians were elected. Considering these facts, it can be argued that the Roman Republic was more of an oligarchy than a democracy. Why did the Roman Republic fail? The Roman Republic existed for close to 500 years. It is among very few republics that have existed that long. However, towards the end of the millennium, power started to accumulate in even fewer hands. This could have been driven by expansion of the territory and a growing population. While initially all citizens could congregate at one venue and deliberate on affairs of the state, with a large area and a bigger population, that became logistically impossible. And that created an opportunity for fewer decision makers to grab power. The republic started to fade out beginning in 30 BCE, with the civil war being fought between Mark Antony and Caesar Octavianus or Octavius, who had given himself the position of dictator that his assassinated grand uncle Julius Caesar had been holding. By the time Octavius had won in 27 BCE, he had become a too powerful leader for the public to control. He refused to follow the tradition of dictators resigning and handing back power to consuls. Instead, he gradually took away most of the powers held by other offices such as the public assembly, the senate, and the tribunes. More importantly, he turned consuls into his servants. Indeed, he became emperor and monarch without a direct official announcement. He had given himself the title of the first citizen of Rome, but we all know him today as Emperor Augustus. His becoming a leader turned out to be a low-key end of the republic and the beginning of an empire that continued for another 400 years. If you enjoyed this video, take a moment to strike the like button. I also welcome your comment. See you in the next video.